Important and critical lessons that we have mastered as a result of Betty Lou's influence, both philosophical and practical. And we're going to show you a series of recent artworks which we have completed. So let us begin. M.M. Alvarez de Toledo shows us about shape making. In her illustration of Betty Lou's teaching, the unpainted area is a shape.
Unpainted area is a shape. It's a shape.
Dixie Clark. Dixie truly understands what she's been taught by Betty Lou, who strongly advised us to paint what's inside of you.
That's awesome.
Hold it way up, Dixie. Betty Lou warned, if you know all the laws of painting and you don't have the spirit of the artist, you may as well close your paintbrush. Marilyn Lincoln demonstrates another important principle that Betty Lou teaches us. Get in the habit of softening the edges. And Carol Hayes takes Betty Lou's wise words to new heights as she depicts Betty Lou's teaching, tell the whole story in the sky. Jean Havrin has tried very hard to master control of her paintings through Betty Lou's teaching. Here she shows us how Betty Lou teaches us to hold the whites. Lorna Philly is right on top of her emotions as she works on Betty Lou's directive to make sure something happens in the darks. And Karen Nastic proclaims her skill in depicting Betty Lou's directive to become part of the landscape. Here, Karen shows us the same way as Betty Lou would show us, saying, I'm in air currents, I'm in air currents, I'm in air currents. Doris Sumsby's painting shows us one of Betty Lou's solutions to getting in trouble. She knows how Betty Lou has taught us. You need to jam up one area and then have a quiet one. And Charlotte Roberts has mastered Betty Lou's directive. Don't skimp on the drawing or you won't know what to do. Anita Cross has learned to make a playground of her emotions and to improve her craft in this painting. Here she demonstrates Betty Lou's teaching, everything is happening under the pier. Now, everyone who paints knows that when you enter your work in a show, you may not get to show your work. This, of course, can be devastating. To avoid rejection of our work in shows, Betty Lou advises us that we add lights to our paintings. Dolly Reed shows us how much she has learned about adding lights as she demonstrates what Betty Lou has taught us. You need lights in the painting. Fly some gulls. Betty Lou not only helps us as a group, she helps us individually. When Mia Price had difficulty with her painting, Betty Lou advised, if nothing is happening in the sky, don't put much in. And Betty Lou admonished us when we were struggling, saying, if you don't like your painting, check your thoughts. Bad painting, bad thoughts. Many of us get emotional when we paint. Chris Pittman, for example, is a very emotional painter. Betty Lou advised her to fall in love with one thing and place it correctly. Leave the other stuff out. Martha Peabody has overcome her fear and become courageous. She has learned to follow Betty Lou's advice. Never put in detail until you're ready for finish. Now, yet another of Betty Lou's basic principles is demonstrated by Helene Pierce, one of the most accomplished painters in our group. The fastest way to send something back is to overlap. Mary Curcio has worked hard to master simple washes. In fact, she has mastered one of Betty Lou's most critical teachings about washes. Never put a wash on fully, leave openings. And Karen Yastik shows us something really important that Betty Lou preaches. We must have authority in the foreground. As many of you know, because you've seen Betty Lou painting around Rockport and Gloucester with groups of students, Betty Lou demonstrates the many and varied approaches to painting plein air. And over and above all else, when painting plein air, Betty Lou asserts, listen to all of the weather channels and go with the best one. So to put this teaching into practice, Nancy Kaplan learned that the weather was going to be nasty. So she decided to work inside on a still life. If you look at this particular painting, what she's working on, it's very hard to paint a pot. It's very, very challenging. In fact, Betty Lou said, don't ever paint 2 ears on a pot. Nancy Rossi, for her part, working inside when it was raining, demonstrated one of Betty Lou's most frequent teachings, the white in shadow makes the painting. We have learned so very much from our gifted teacher, and we are so very grateful for her basic and advanced principles that we've been taught. And in the end, we will always remember what Betty Lou declared: a painting is a world unto itself. A painting is a love affair. The bottom line for Betty Lou is crystal clear, and with great confidence in 2006, Betty Lou declared, why would anyone do any activity other than painting? Tiger Woods should learn how to paint.